Hi friends, welcome back. So in this video, I'll be discussing about user acceptance checklist. So in order to start user acceptance testing, if we have a checklist, that will be very good for any end user, because the checklist will give us a list of activity that we would require to be performed while performing user acceptance testing. Normally, this checklist could be a standardized guidelines or a well-defined task, so that we have to complete those tasks in order to say we have done the user acceptance testing. So I have given a detailed checklist for user acceptance testing. Let's go by one. The first checklist we will have to look here is, before we are starting UAT, which is pre-UAT, what are the detailed things we have to prepare? That is a list of things we have to perform. One is, we'll have to define the UAT objectives, scope, as well as success criteria before we are starting UAT. That we have to clearly define. That is one of the criteria. And the next one is, we'll have to identify and involve the appropriate stakeholders as well as end users. Is also very key in successful of UAT. This we have to done before we are starting UAT. We have to identify all the stakeholders and as well as end users. And the next one is, we have to develop or finalize the user stories, requirements, as well as acceptance criteria as a pre-UAT preparation. And we have to set up the UAT test environment, which is equal to the production environment. And we should prepare test data as well in order to test the application using that test data, which are more having a real world scenarios. And you should establish the detailed communication channel as well for feedback as well as issue reporting with the complete stakeholders as well as end user, whether it could be online meetings, whether it could be offline meeting, or whether it is via email, status reports, daily stand-up meetings. All these communication channels should be well established before we are starting as part of UAT as a pre-UAT preparation phase. Now we will come into UAT phase, where we will require to be doing a test planning activity in order to start the UAT. As part of test planning, we should create a UAT test plan that going to outline roles and responsibilities, timelines, what will be in our scope, what is out of scope, what are the infrastructure, what are the schedule. Everything will be defined as part of the test plan. And we should also going to develop the detailed test cases as part of executing those scenarios, which are including acceptance criteria also you have to define. And we should prioritize as well the test cases which we wrote based on the criticality as well as business impact. That is also required to be done. And we should assign the testers as well to test these test cases in a scheduling manner, so that we can start the UAT phase. And ensure availability of necessary resources and access permissions are also available with us, so that we can go for execution phase. Now during execution phase, we will have to ensure that we are going to test all the functional side aspect, whether those really meets the user requirements, and test the usability of performing tests common to the end users. You have to verify even performance aspects as well under normal as well as peak loads as part of UAT. And you should also validate the compatibility with the different devices, browsers, platforms as part of UAT executions. And you should also ensure that we cover security aspects as well as part of this execution phase. And we should perform regression aspects as well, as existing functionalities are getting changed or modified or adding new functionality. You should ensure that regressions are executed, and that is not going to impact. And you should also validate the integrity and accuracy of the test data. The next one is, we should also see to that all the error handling, all recovery mechanisms should be available with the application. And you should also evaluate documentation for clarity or completeness as part of execution. And the next phase would be feedback and issue management. Once the testing executions are done, so we'll have to gather what are the different feedbacks we have received from the end users regarding the their experience while testing the software, and they will be logging those defects or issues or even enhancement requests, so that you are going to prioritize those defects or issues, and we are going to assign those issues to the development team for the resolution, and that will be communicated back to the development team for fixing those issues. And once the fixes are done, our UAT team requests to be verify those fixes or enhancement in subsequent UAT cycles. Next item should be validated is acceptance and sign off. Once testing is done, we'll have to review all our test results against our entry and exit criteria of UAT, and we have to verify all the critical defects that are addressed by the development team, and we should get a formal acceptance from all the stakeholders so that we can sign off from the UAT. That deployment can happen post sign off, and all the UAT results, test findings and resolutions are well documented and kept in some shared spaces. And once the UAT is done, the next activity we would be required to perform is post UAT activities. We have to prepare the user documentation and training materials, and schedule the end user training session if necessary, and finalize the deployment plan and schedule, because that software will have to going to deploy into the production environment, so that all the end users would be required to know how to execute or how to use that application, and coordinate with the operation teams for deployment as well, because they will be doing the deployment into the production environment. We'll have to see any challenges in the configuration or installation or deployment that we'll have to take care as a post UAT activities. And monitor the post deployment performance, and the user feedback is also another key aspect we have to perform as part of the UAT checklist. So these are some of the critical important activity we must perform for any UAT testing. So these are just a guidelines of a high level activity that everyone must know in order to execute user acceptance testing.